Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Polio Jr. And in today's video, I'm going to show you the very simple process of changing your antifreeze completely. And also, I'm going to be replacing this upper radiator hose. So we're going to be cleaning out this system, and we're going to do it step by step here. So the first thing that we're going to do is take off the radiator cap. This is a 1999 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I have this cap here which relieves pressure if I need to, so that if it was hot, it wouldn't just explode on me. But you always want to have a rag just in case. This is best done when the car hasn't been running for a while. Everything is relatively cool. My car's been, so I'm taking off the radiator cap first, and I'm doing it with a rag. Never just do it with your bare hands, just to be safe. But if you have one of those caps, you can relieve the pressure so that it won't bubble up like that. So, well, here's the second part I'll show you. I have this, so here's a pretty big oil pan, which, you know, obviously I would typically use for replacing the oil, draining the oil. We're basically doing the same thing. So we're draining the old antifreeze and putting in new antifreeze. The guy at AutoZone told me that the Jeep takes 11.5 quarts. I have 10 quarts on me, so we'll go from there. And now, underneath, on the passenger side, I'm going to go under here real quick and see if I can give you a pretty good visual. Okay, so I'm underneath the passenger side here, and typically you have the hysterical funny word petcock, which is just the valve to release the current antifreeze that you have in the system. So like I said, I'm on the front passenger side, and here's you can see I've been leaking up from the top, and it's just been dripping down. But here's the lower radiator hose right here. It goes a little bit in, and you'll see some clamps on there. So what I have are a pair of vice grips. And so what it does get a little bit messy. That's why you want a pretty big pan here. So with my vice grips, I have it on the exact size where I can pull the clamps apart and then just hold the the oil pan underneath it to let everything go down into it. So that's what I'm going to do. I have a pair of vice grips. I'm going to pull that clamp, let it all go into the oil pan. So make sure the radiator cap is off, and also make sure that that this cap is off as well. Radiator cap is off, and the overflow tank is off as well. And like I said, all I'm going to do is get my pair of vice grips, take off that clamp, and try not to make a mess. Alright, so if you can see here in our second part of the journey, I just have a pair of vice grips that are on the actual clamp on the lower radiator hose, like I said, which is on the passenger side. And I just pulled it back a little bit so it would leak out like this, and not all at once. I mean, you can, if you really want to, start moving the clamp backwards and pull off the hose. It'll come out a lot quicker, but I'm just doing this to avoid a mess. So as this really does start to slow down, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull the clamps back and pull the hose off and get everything out, and then we'll go to the next step after that. Okay, so I moved the pan over, but I really didn't have that much antifreeze in here as I was leaking it. Here is the old upper radiator hose, very similar to the lower radiator hose. I used pliers, and It did require a little bit of strength to pull that guy off, to get the actual hose off, because these kind of clamps are a real pain in the butt. So I have the new upper radiator hose before I flush it, and this is very simple. I got this at AutoZone. I just asked for two clamps here, adjustable clamps, and so all that we're gonna do here is just this side's gonna go on first. If you can see, best we got here, and then this is gonna go in here. But first, the clamps. The clamps need to go around it. Sorry, trying to use one hand here. Clamp needs to go around it, and then clamps around it, going right on there. I guess you can clean that part off if you want. I'm just getting it on there. And then this, you just need a regular flathead. Tighten that up. This part right here is going to be same thing. Don't worry about bending the hose. As long as you get it fully on there, you'll be perfectly fine. So it does require, I might need two hands for this, but just move some stuff out of the way. Get that. You're going to put this clamp on here like that. Then you might need two hands to squeeze that through. Put that on there, and then just tighten the clamps. And then there's our upper radiator hose. So after that, what I'm going to do, what they recommend is you start putting distilled water in here, and just kind of clean out the system. You do that first. So the cap, you put distilled water in, everything's back on underneath, the radiator hose is back on. Put the cap back on, close that, put distilled water in here, and let it go for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes or so. And then after that, you repeat the process. So you take off you would drain what you have in there again from the bottom, put that back on, and then fill her up with antifreeze. So all I'm going to do is what I did in the beginning, was go at the bottom and take off the hose and get all the antifreeze out from there. And then after that, put the hose, so make sure everything's empty, put the hose back on, and then start filling her up with antifreeze. Alright, so just to recap here, what I've done is I've turned the car around to go uphill. So the first thing we did was go underneath the passenger side, take off the radiator hose with the clamp. If you can get that clamp off and put a new clamp on, I highly suggest that. We empty out all the antifreeze, put the hose back on with the clamp. After that, even though I didn't show the part, you'd put a gallon or two of distilled water in here. If you don't have any, I would suggest getting some. Worst comes to worst, you do use a lot of people use their hose as well, but distilled water is preferable. Let that run for 10 to 15 minutes. Turn off the engine. Go back underneath, and then take off the clamp and the hose again, and drain that into your pan. Put the clamp and the hose back on, and now we're at this stage where I've turned around the car. I have this funnel here, which if you've seen in another video, I have electrical tape at the bottom to kind of fit in there very snug. So what I'm going to do is turn on the car. Well, I'm going to start filling it with antifreeze until I can't fill it up anymore. So once the antifreeze is towards the top here, then I'll turn on the car. Once the car is on, I'll continually fill up the funnel here with 50/50 antifreeze until I can't, and then I'm going to let it run a little bit longer, and that should really be it. So I'll go on to the next part if I need to. If not, hopefully this was self-explanatory for you. See you later. Alright, so this is the real finale here. So I was putting antifreeze in before I started the car, waited till that went down, or waited till it couldn't go anymore. So now I'm running the system, making sure all the air gets out if there is any in there. This is very similar to a previous video. I'm going to let this run for 15 to 20 minutes, let it get all the air out that it needs to. And so once this is where it's at a reasonable point that it's not going to keep burping like that, then I'll close it up and put the cap back on. You can see the new upper radiator hose is on. If you see it just like this, that's exactly how it needs to be, where the clamps are. So one thing out of the way. So I think those were the originals, because they were the clamps were rusty. The hose is definitely old. I should probably switch out the lower radiator hose as well. It's the same process though. So new upper radiator hose, clean out the system, put some new antifreeze in here, and should be good to go. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.